Welcome back to Smoky Ribs. I'm Russ Jones. Today I'm going to be doing a video by request, a Cuban recipe. And the recipe I'm referring to is called Ropa Vieja. I don't know much about Cuban cuisine other than what I have had I like. I have done a Cubano sandwich on my channel which turned out absolutely outstanding. I've done a whole hog with the mojo flavors that turned out really good as well. But this recipe was actually given to me. Her YouTube handle is Colombian Puerto Rican Mommy, and she emailed me this family recipe that's over 70 years old. She's half Puerto Rican, half Colombian, but she's married to a full-blooded Cuban, and the recipe comes from his grandmother, Cuban grandmother. So that's the recipe I'm going to be following. Can't wait to try this. One thing on a side note is that it seems like everybody does this recipe a little different. And that's one reason I want to use an authentic Cuban family recipe, because if you go online and start Googling it, you're going to see a lot of different variations to this, many of which calls for Spanish olives. This particular recipe does not. They all have the sofrito in them, which I'm going to show you that, but that alone can be done different ways. Some puree it, some just put the vegetables in a pan with the meat. So like I'm saying, there's different variations. I will be following the recipe to a T the way she gave it to me.
If you wanna cook backyard barbecue till you get your feel, you come to the right place. Russ Jones Smoky Ribs. Smoky Ribs. Smoky Ribs.
Her recipe called for around 3 pounds of beef roast, and this is the smallest I could find. It weighs in at 4.5 pounds. So I'll probably won't use all of this in this recipe, but I've got to cook it all, so I'll just reserve whatever for another recipe. So she says to take and cut this into like 2-inch chunks, and that's what we're going to do. That looks like roughly 2 inches across each one of those. We're going to go about 2 inches here. And again about half. Alright, so I have a pot. I'm going to place my meat into this pot. I'm going to be taking just plain tap cold water, and we're going to cover till it's almost over the top of this meat, and from there we're going to put it on the stove. I've got the pot on the stove with the water just barely coming up to the top of the meat, and into that I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt. We're going to mix that in. I'm going to bring this up to a boil. Once it's boiling, then I'm going to turn the heat down to just a simmer. I'm going to put a cover on it, and we're going to cook this down to where this meat becomes tender and where it will shred very easily. This dish calls for something called sofrito. It's used in a lot of Cuban dishes, Caribbean dishes, and there again there's different variations that I've seen on this. This particular variation calls for it all to be pureed. It's a combination of onion, garlic, and various peppers. I'm going to show you how to do that right now. These peppers here are just sweet peppers. They come in orange and red. And what I'm going to do is just simply clean these up, chop them up. We're going to de-seed them. We're going to take the veins out. The easiest way that I've found to de-seed and to remove the veins of a pepper like this that's shaped similar to a jalapeno is to simply cut it in half, then take a spoon and just scrape it. Very fast, very easy. Now after I do that, then I'm simply just going to cut them. They don't have to be a particular cut. Like I said, these are going into the blender. I'm going to go ahead and get all of these peppers done and ready. We'll be back. Next up, I'm doing a large bell pepper, green bell pepper. And there again, you're going to remove the seeds and the pith, the membrane, vein, whatever you want to call it. Now this bell pepper, make sure you use the end too. That's perfectly good bell pepper, no sense wasting it. Now 1 medium Spanish onion or yellow onion. We're just gonna, there again, chop this up. I'm hoping all this will fit in my food processor. It's not the great big one. I think we'll be okay though. All right, next up I have green onions. You want to take and cut the roots off of these. From here we're just going to chop them up. Our next ingredient for the sofrito is cilantro. I'm going to cut the hard stems off. Now, I'm really not going to do much with it. I'm just going to put it in the processor just like you see it here. So we're down to the last ingredient, I believe. I'll have to look and double check, but we're down to garlic. Got 2 heads of garlic. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and take all the skin off these individual garlic pods. And I'll be back in a few minutes, and we're going to throw all this into my Ninja. All right, so I'm looking at the size of my processor, and I can see already that I'm gonna have to do this in 2 batches. So it really doesn't matter. It's all gonna be blended in together. So I'm just gonna start mixing some of everything on this first batch. Split the cilantro up. Some onion, bell pepper, green onion, some garlic. It's probably about half the garlic. I believe we can hold some more. All right, let's go ahead and pulse this and break this down some. All right, here we go. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and add some more. It's going down further than what I thought it would on this first batch, but I still don't think I'm gonna get it all in here. Would not fit all in one batch. I was close. There's still some left. The next batch won't be near as big. It's rendered out probably 2.5, 3 cups, and all this recipe calls for is 1/4 cup. This stuff freezes very well. Just put it in a little Ziploc freezer bags or vacuum pack, however you want to do it. And the Colombian and Puerto Rican mama, she said one thing they do, because they use this a lot, is they'll put it in ice trays and actually freeze it and pop those ice cubes out for various recipes. This particular recipe that I'm doing today would actually take 2 of the ice cubes. So I'm going to cover this, pop it in the fridge, and we'll be back once our meat is ready over here and to where we can start to shred it, and we'll take you from there. All right, let's see where we're at on this meat. We have been going, let's see, I think I started this at 2:30. It is now 10 minutes to 5, so that's roughly 2.5 hours. Take a fork. Oh yeah, yeah, she's shredding good. Fork goes through no problem. Yeah, she's getting tender. I'm gonna let this go about another 10 minutes. It's right there. I removed all the meat from the pot. And the thing you want to do, and keep in mind this is going to cook for an additional 20 minutes. We got it to where it will shred, as you can see here. For the most part, it's very tender. Any pieces of fat, just go ahead and remove them. Take your shredded pieces, set them off to the side. This is a chuck roast. There's quite a bit of fat in places, such as like right here. Just discard that. You want only the meat. I just took a little bite of this, and chuck is always a really good flavorful beef. That's what they make most hamburgers out of because of that very reason. But flank, skirt steak, any flavorful beef roast would work in this. Got a cast iron skillet. We're going to add 2 tablespoons of lard. Let this melt in. Now into the hot lard, I'm going to put 1/4 cup of the sofrito that I made earlier. And to this, I'm adding 1 can. This is the little small can. Let's see if I can see ounces on this. I think this is like a little 12-ounce can. I'm not sure. I don't even sit on a can, but it's the smallest one you can get. By the way, this is an 8-ounce can. Alright, so as you can see, the tomato sauce is giving us a really nice red color. I brought my heat back up more to kind of a medium-low. This is not all the meat. I'm just adding it in portions. You want to make sure you get a good coverage of the sauce all the way through it. And as I stated earlier, she said a 3-pound roast, but I'm looking, I think I can use this entire 4.5-pound roast for the mere fact that a good third of that was fat that I discarded. Alright, so if you see, it's looking dry, right? It's like not enough sauce. Well, this is where that broth comes in. I'm taking the same can that I had the tomato sauce with. I'm going in with 1 can. Give this a good stir. Looking good. Alright, now at this point, I need to season it. We're going to go in first with some salt. It's just going to be salt to taste. I am using the Jacobsen flake salt. I've got 1 teaspoon of cumin. I went and bought new spices today. I wanted them nice and fresh. I've got 1 teaspoon of adobo seasoning. Now when she sent me this recipe, I had no idea about this seasoning that I'm getting ready to show you. It kind of confused me because she was talking about, you know, the cumin and then the adobo, and then she said and 1 teaspoon of the complete seasoning. I thought she meant put the 2 together, but there actually is a seasoning called complete seasoning by Badea. Like I said, I don't cook this type cuisine normally, so didn't know about it, but I do now. 1 teaspoon of that, and that is it for the seasoning. We're going to give this a good mix. Alright, now I'm going to turn this down a little bit more to a simmer. I'm going to put the remainder of this broth in here. Stir it one good time. We're going to let this simmer. We've already been going a good 5 minutes, so let's say another 10 to 15 minutes. It looks ready to eat to me right now, but I'm going to follow the directions. Alright, I have got me a bed of rice on my plate. We are going to take and ladle some of this right on top. I would take the time to garnish this plate and make it look really nice and pretty, but I'm hungry. I'm getting ready to dig in. Alright, let's get us some on a fork and give her a try. One more first, hang on. Oh man, that is delicious. You can taste the, what's the word I want to use? The Hispanic type flair to it. You know, we have our stews and stuff we do here. The meat and all is very similar, but it's got that twist to it. absolutely wonderful flavors. I knew it would be. I was smelling it. I didn't actually taste it this time until it was completely put together. Now earlier I was talking about some of these have like the Spanish olives. That would actually be a really good addition to this as well, because I love the Spanish olives. I can almost taste that in there. But it's absolutely fantastic the way it is. Very old recipe. I hope you give it a try. And I want to thank the Colombian, Puerto Rican mommy for sharing this family recipe and allowing me to share it with all of y'all. Hope y'all enjoyed the video, and until next time, smoke your ribs.